Welcome everyone, StealthyShiroean here, and today I'm bringing you my review of the Humble Choice bundle for July 2024. Despite the decent headliners, this month's bundle really fell short for me. It's not all bad though, and some of these games might actually cater to your own taste. Let me know what you think of this month's bundle in the comments below. Be sure to check the timestamps for specific games and stay tuned for my final thoughts in the end. Okay, let's get to the review. Starting us off is Hyperviolent, a first-person retro shooter meant to harken back to the 90s. But don't get this confused with the boomer shooter, because that's not this. It reminded me of a really old game I played as a kid called Descent, released on DOS. It felt a lot like that, and from the Steam page there seems to be some gameplay that looks directly inspired from it as you're flying a ship with the full 6 degrees of movement. Anyway, that's kind of getting off topic because the main setting of the game is sci-fi horror. There's not really much of a story, and what is here is something we've seen before. Things go wrong on this mining colony, and now we have space zombies to deal with. The gameplay here is painfully average. Things felt rough around the edges, but it is an early access title, so some of these things might get smoothed out. The AI for the enemies wasn't too smart, and I had instances where they were just standing around, although I was never sure if I was getting the jump on them or if it was a glitch. Other times they'd walk into a wall or get stuck on geometry. I had an instance where the music just cut out for me for the longest time and then eventually came back. And on the topic of music, I couldn't help but notice that the music was merely there to play in the background, rather than accentuate any moments like in Doom or other retro shooters we've received in Humble Choice in the past. Looting was something that felt out of place and tedious. Every enemy you kill, you could check their corpse to find much needed ammunition or healing items. However, this process of looting really killed the momentum of the game in my opinion, and since the bodies are flat sprites, it was sometimes difficult to interact with them in order to take your ill-gotten gains. I'd say unless you're really itching to try this, or you're relatively new to Humble Choice, then you'd probably be better off playing one of the other previously given retro shooters. I know that's what I'm gonna do, as I don't see myself coming back to this one unless there's decent changes come its 1.0 release. Heretic's Fork is a blend of deck building, tower defense, and bullet heaven, where you take the role of some sort of hellish management tasked with killing sinners? I really don't know. The game starts you off with logging into some sort of pseudo-hell-themed desktop, but doesn't honestly do much with it. The real game is, well, actually, it felt closer to an idle game than any actual gameplay. Basically, you can't let sinners destroy the base, or whatever it is, in the center. You do this by selecting your starter towers that either spawn units or shoot projectiles to attack the incoming enemies. Every time the bar on the right fills up, every 10 to 20 seconds or so, you get presented with new cards to add to your deck. During this time, you could also sacrifice cards to upgrade or banish cards from your deck. Although the latter made no sense because why wouldn't you just sacrifice them to get something better? And, of course, you could play new cards. These would either buff your existing towers, build new towers, or give you access to an active skill. And these so-called active skills are almost always better off just set to auto-use, so basically the player does nothing during each interval of card choosing. Yeah, this game just didn't do it for me at all. I was pretty bored just watching things happen and making a couple choices periodically. There is a nice soundtrack if you're in the mood for some dark synthy metal, but that's really it. I can't help but feel the intention for this game was to have it up on a second monitor while doing something else. Either way, it definitely wasn't for me. Following that, we have Figment 2 Creed Valley, which is an adventure game through the mind where stray thoughts, fears, and opinions all occupy this world as its denizens. You play as Dusty, the embodiment of courage, whose task is to fight these fears. I really like the story and unique world building the game had. It's crafted in a clever way as you explore the recesses of the mind. The idea of hearing opinions bicker back and forth, or literally having a courage character fighting off internal fears, was a neat take on the psychology of the mind. At various moments we actually zoom out a bit and see the person whose mind we're inhabiting, being a workaholic father and husband who's struggling to juggle his life. I thought it was interesting. And really, I think if that wasn't enough to capture your attention, then the gameplay isn't going to do it. Nothing here is bad, but it's rather unremarkable. There's a simple combat system where that mainly has you rolling out of harm's way, and then rolling towards harm's way so you can get a stronger attack in. It does the job, but it's rather bare bones. There are puzzles as well, but most of them didn't really take that much thought to figure out. Which, if you followed me for a while, you already know that I actually don't mind this, since I don't really like mind-bending puzzles, but maybe some of you will find this as a negative. Despite all this, I felt the gameplay loop did its job, and paired with the story, it made for a fun experience. Oh, and there's musical scores as well that are sung from the bosses and characters. I don't know, it's neat and adds to the whimsical nature of the world, but I didn't really see it as a focal point.
Is it the wind or someone under your bed? It's like death awaits you. Your wickedness is what shadows hide.
Nothing like last month's Stray Gods, despite Figment's devs adding it as a feature on their Steam page. Anyway, I wouldn't mind coming back to this one, and with its short runtime of only about 4 hours, it seems like something that could be easily finished. Zoeti is a card battler roguelite, and another average entry in this month's bundle. The gameplay has you creating poker combos to enact slottable skills. In that sense, I think the game is a bit unique because you can create your own loadouts based on the skills you find during a run. It made it more interesting to decide whether you should hoard cards to pull off higher card combo skills, or spend them for cheaper actions. Along with the card combos, each run also comes with an assortment of items you can equip, along with the accessories that augment your build just like any other roguelite. There's a story here as well, and it's a story alright. I felt the dialogue was cringy, and I stopped paying that much attention to it after a while, especially because when you die, you have to repeat everything all over again. Thankfully, there's a skip button for that. There were also side dialogues that you could read, but I had no idea why they were even there. They didn't seem to pertain to the player character at all, and didn't open up any new quests or items. It just seemed to be there largely for flair. What I can say though is that the character portraits were nice, if a bit uninspired. However, once again, I felt the game was alright, but nothing that really grabbed my attention. If you like this style of card battler, then I think this one may be decent if you can ignore the story. Otherwise, it's probably not worth the time. Fairly certain I won't be playing this one again myself. In Sticky Business, you run a sticker business which has you creating stickers, printing them off, and fulfilling customer orders for said stickers. Despite the management of a business, make no mistake, the real game is spent largely in the sticker editor, where you have a vast array of pictures at your disposal to create your stickers. As you sell more of them, you'll level up each component that makes them up, which will give you currency you could use to unlock more pictures for your sticker creations. The light management makes up the other side of the game, where you need to print off sticker sheets by placing them on the page optimally, fulfilling the orders that come up by packing the boxes, and mailing them off to your customers. All of this is really easy and is never meant to impede the real point of the game, which is the creation of the stickers. Ultimately, this game is... not for me. I understand the appeal of the coziness of this game, and the stress-free nature of it being a video game. At the same time, I sort of think it might be a better use of the time you'd use playing this game to just open up an Etsy store and use something like Canva to do a very similar thing, but maybe actually work towards making real money. Obviously, that comparison is not one-to-one, but bottom line, I just don't see myself putting in any real time to this game. Starship Troopers Terran Command obviously is based on the 1997 movie, which I guess was also based on a much older book, which I didn't realize until recently. But what we have here is a tactical real-time strategy where you fight the arachnids in an ongoing war to secure humanity's future in the galaxy. I liked how tactical the gameplay was. It reminded me a bit of Company of Heroes, but there's not as much resource gathering. Resources seem to be doled out by completing objectives in a scenario or finding one-time use supply caches. I didn't mind this because it forces players to think carefully about which units to deploy or defenses to construct. Additionally, I like that you could deconstruct defenses to move them along the front, such as repositioning the machine gun turrets so they aren't just sitting somewhere with no action. And positioning in general is really important in this game. I like the tactical side of things with this one. In Starship Troopers, you can't fire through your own units, so you either need to line them up or have them take advantage of elevations. Choke points become incredibly important for a defense, or dangerous if you're trying to advance. However, all that said, I think most players will ultimately decide to play this game if they're a fan of Starship Troopers, which I'm not. I watched the movie as a kid, but it never really stood in my memory as anything that great, so I'm not sure how keen I am to really come back to this one. Also, there's no multiplayer or random maps at all either. It's only scenarios in the campaign, or campaigns if you purchase the DLC, and that's kind of a bummer and a bit strange for this kind of game, but I could respect the devs' choice to keep their scope in check. The penultimate title is Ghostrunner 2, where you play the role of a cybernetic ninja, aka a Ghostrunner, and have to, well, do something. I didn't really understand the story. For really long-time subscribers of Choice, you may actually have the original Ghostrunner from a couple years back. I remember liking that myself, but I haven't touched it since that review. Story-wise, there's a lot of things I didn't really understand and felt that I needed the first game for context. Gameplay-wise, it felt very similar to what I vaguely remembered from the first game. Really fast-paced combat where getting hit means instant death, but the same is usually the case for the enemies you face, so players need to be agile and react quickly to dodge and block enemy attacks. There's a lot of failure here, but when everything clicks together, the feeling of jumping around this beautifully dingy cyberpunk world and slashing baddies is immensely satisfying. The difficulty itself didn't bother me so much this time around, but I think it's because I knew exactly what I was getting into. I'd say most of my deaths were entirely my own fault instead of feeling like the game was playing dirty. Except for that first boss, I did think he was a tad bit tough, but even that was partially my fault because I wasn't using my ally special ability for the longest time. All that said, I'd say if you're not a patient person or don't like really difficult games, then you probably won't want to play this. I know I definitely like to return to this, but again, only after I play through the first one. The main headliner for the month is Plague Tale Requiem, the sequel to Plague Tale Innocence, which we also received in a past Humble Choice. I played through the first game and liked it a lot. Sure, the rats did get a bit ridiculous, but remembering that this is obviously not the real-world plague, but an alternative version of our world allowed me to suspend my disbelief. As this is a continuation of the story from the first game, you probably will want to play Innocence first, as this continues with many of the same characters. Things that seemed somewhat resolved in the first game obviously are not, as the plague returns and Amicia, the game's protagonist, needs to figure out how to stop it and protect her friends and family, especially Hugo, her little brother. The first hour opened with gameplay that was very similar to Innocence. There's stealth sections and the ability to use your slingshot to take out enemies. Apparently there are some changes to this formula from what I remember from the trailers when the game first came out, but I didn't really get to see anything new just yet. What is here is great though. And the world itself is absolutely stunning. I loved it in the first game, but the sequel seems even more dialed up, which I guess is to be expected. The vistas are beautiful, and I loved all the little details the devs put in with the historical specific actions, decorative items, the game's architecture, etc. It's all lovingly crafted and creates a believable world. I very much wanted to play this game, and now that I own it, I have the perfect excuse to do so. Okay, let's wrap this up and see if this bundle is worth it or not. I based our rating solely on whether I thought the game was worth playing out about an hour or so of hands-on gameplay. Also, I'd be grateful if you could please give the video a like if you're enjoying it, because that really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm gods. Overall, wow, I really hate to say it, but this was such a miss of a month for me. Obviously, everyone's personal taste will differ, and hopefully there's a few more in here for you than there was for me. The headliners were better this month compared to last, but between my own tastes and the fact that many of the games were just average at best, yeah, not too much to get excited about. Which is doubly a pity since the bundle was released on my birthday. On a more positive note, I just want to give a great big thank you to everyone who watches these reviews and anything else I post to the channel. As of this writing, I have 998 subscribers, so I probably will have 1,000 sometime this month. And I am beyond grateful for your support. I'm blown away that there are that many people who actually care about what I have to say and tune in to watch my stuff. And double thanks to the people who take extra time to leave a comment. Obviously that helps my metrics, but more importantly, I like talking about games with you guys. And you've no doubt seen recently I've been trying to branch the channel out a bit by doing game reviews and first impression videos. Most of these are just things that I was interested in checking out, but I usually try to keep the reviews on something in past bundles so that you might remember a hidden gem you forgot. I also have had a few keys given by publishers, which I've been really grateful to receive. Anyway, I plan to continue doing these types of videos, so if there's any requests or something you want to see me cover, then just shoot me a message and I'll think about it. But yeah, one more time, thank you everyone for your support and getting me this far. Okay, enough about the blah blah blah. Let's get to the recommendations. At the very top of the must-plays of the month is Plague Tale Requiem. As I mentioned, I really like the first one, and the second game seems to just double down on what made the first one good. Really looking forward to see how the story continues to unfold. Stepping down from that, the strong recommendations hold Ghostrunner 2. Ghostrunner 2, like Plague Tale, brings more of what made the first game good, and that might actually not be a good thing for you depending on what you like. In the weak recommendations, I put Starship Troopers Terran Command and Figment 2 Creed Valley. Starship Troopers had some good strategy gameplay, but the obvious caveat is that you probably need to be a fan of the franchise to appreciate it. I place it here because maybe I'll bother with watching the movie as an adult and find a new love for it. Not holding my breath though, but I can understand why others might be interested in this game. On the flip side, Figment 2 had an interesting story, but mediocre gameplay. I still felt that I would want to come back to this for the story alone though. Now, the rest of the bundle gets a bit harder to place because it's definitely heavily based on an individual's preference, which is literally always the case, but I guess I feel a bit off putting a majority of the bundle in the Don't Bother With section, especially since I don't think I've ever done this before. Obviously, not all these titles are inherently bad games, and if they're to your taste, then give them a try. But the idea behind this section is that I personally would not bother with this game again after the bundle review. But anyway, in the Don't Bother With section is Sticky Business, Heretic's Fork, Hyperviolent, and Zoeti. Sticky Business is actually a charming little game, but man, is this pretty far from something I'd want to play. But I can understand why the creative zen vibes this game has might appeal to some. Heretic's Fork is another game that just didn't click with me, but even worse, I actively felt it was boring while playing. This felt to me like a mobile game I'd have installed on my phone, only to uninstall it after a couple weeks, realizing that all it's doing is wasting my time and not in any fulfilling way. Hyperviolent seemed rough around the edges and just didn't really impress. I have plenty of other games like this to try in my library. Maybe the full release will change my mind though. And finally, Zoeti, as mentioned, is just an average game. It does some interesting stuff with the card combat, but ultimately, it just doesn't feel like anything special. Do you agree with my thoughts? What games, if any, are you looking forward to playing? Let me know what your thoughts are, or if there are any different recommendations you'd make in the comments below. I hope this video helped you in some small way, and if it did, then please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.